Hi, I'm Blake Buse, and I'm your marketing technology maestro.
Hey, I'm Greg Marshall. I'm your social media marketing strategist.
And this is the Modern Marketers Podcast. We're recording now, and it is moving now.
All right, perfect. Okay. We just had a wonderful experience where we recorded a beautiful podcast for you guys, but for whatever reason, technology just paused on us. So
it was the best one. It's gone. It's gone forever. But we got this, and we'll do it again, and I think we'll make it even better.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree. So basically, our last podcast was about essentially, when people want to change what they do that's already working when they shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Like a challenge that I have with a lot of clients is I actually talk to them about, I have to talk them into not changing what's already working because they're becoming bored with their own marketing campaigns. And so they want to shift them, or let's try something new, or everyone in the whole world has seen this, or my customers are too bombarded, which that typically is more about, we're thinking about ourselves too much, right? Thinking because I saw this 28 times because I'm on the back end of my business, that everyone else saw it 28 times. But trust me, they haven't.
Yeah.
Because you got to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and what kind of sparked the whole conversation is before we started recording the first time that didn't record correctly, you made a statement to me that kind of just really caught my attention. You said, I can't tell you how many times I have to have conversation with clients telling them not to change things, not to make changes, that things are working, but they want to keep switching stuff up, right? And we went off on a big tangent about why people do this.
Yeah.
Some of that is never gonna be heard ever.
Yeah.
But I do remember some bits of it, and one of them we were talking about. Let me tell you, you had some great ideas on why you think people want to change something that's working. They're spending, $500 a day and they're getting $2,000 a day back, and they want to shut the campaign down and try something different.
Yeah. So those basically the reasons why people want to do that, it's fear-based, right? And we all run into this, so we're not excluding us. We're just saying this is something that we all have to constantly, be aware of. Are we making decisions based off fear or actual data? A lot of times people present data in a way where they think it's data, but it's actually fear-based, and they've just come up with a great argument, right? But really it's two fears. The fear number one is the fear of kind of looking played out, like people have seen your stuff too much, or they've already done that. There's no creativity in that. And, creators pride themselves on having new stuff and coming up with new ideas. So it goes against their internal kind of makeup to keep showing the same thing over and over again. And so one is they don't want to look like, they're played out or going out of style because they keep doing the same thing. And number two is the fear of lack of resources, right? So they believe that, well, if I add on to what I'm already doing, I may not have the money, the mental capacity, or the time to actually do this. So they want to cut things off. And another kind of reason for that is when there's more things happening, there tends to be a feeling of loss of control. So the fastest way to kind of feel like you're back in control is to stop something or cut it off. And so that's where I think a lot of that comes from.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes there's this pressure from peers, or even a perceived pressure, a pressure that doesn't really exist other than something we put on ourselves or the business owner puts on themselves, that I want my peers out there that are also business owners to respect me and think that I'm innovative, or think that I'm always reaching certain levels or doing things. And I'm worried that they're going to think I'm boring and lame if I keep selling the same t-shirt over and over and over again, even though it's making me loads of money.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that definitely comes into play, especially when you have, I had this situation happen to me before where you have an outside advisor that doesn't actually have the experience yet in this field. They're very skilled, but they don't have the actual experience yet making suggestions that are the right decisions in another business model, but not in this one, right?
Okay.
So I'm not saying this person does not know what they're doing, or that, their advice is done with ill will or even not credible. What I'm saying is the advice is applicable to that particular industry, but it doesn't transfer over 100%. So my example would be like, I can't say because I understand, digital marketing that I now know how to do heart surgery because I've had success in digital marketing, right? My advice might be keep doing the same thing in the digital marketing world, but that may be terrible advice if I'm like operating on someone's heart, right? I mean, that could be, catastrophic.
Yeah.
And so what I mean is typically what happens is outside noise definitely impacts how people can behave, particularly if they're tied emotionally to what the product is. Like if they made it, they tend to, if anyone kind of goes after it, they will actually take the criticism and try to change it. Because they're like, oh, I can't have people viewing me this way or thinking about things this way. So I need to change it. So absolutely, outside forces do that all the time. And of course, if you're someone who communicates with family and friends and they see what you're doing, people are always going to give you that sideline advice on how to do things they've never done. We've all run into that, right? Where you have family members telling you, you really shouldn't do that. And you're like, well, how many businesses have you started again?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen you start a single one. So how do you know?
Or even if they do, do own a business or whatever, your business might be totally different.
Absolutely.
And it's totally fine. I do understand very, very deeply the stress that comes from creating something yourself.
Yes.
And then running your own ads. And that's something that I ran into. And that's literally the reason that you and I started working together. I mean, we had met before that, but that's the reason we started working together, because I had created my kind of initial product. I was running my own ads, and like everything was so insanely stressful for me because it was my thing. Every time a negative comment would come in, I would be stressed because it was hard for me to not take that personally, because this was all I had done, all of it.
Yep.
And delegating that to you took a lot of stress off of my mind. Didn't you say you had clients literally this week reach out and say, I can't take it anymore?
Yep. I've had in the last 2 months alone, I've had a couple of new clients come in where they know how to run ads. They have run ads before. They were running them before they reached out, and they've taken all the courses and everything. But when they get in the game, as I call it, right? Mm-hmm. It is a lot different because you're not actually. If we were all cold and emotionless, then it wouldn't matter. You could step in and do anything, right? The problem is when you're practicing and you're not in the game yet, you don't feel the pressures of when you actually have to go. It's your product. Now you're spending your money, and people are commenting or not buying or whatever, and now that you feel like that's a reflection of you as a person and your character, it starts to play games with you when you're running ads, because you start to get emotionally tied and, is this going to work? Am I doing the right thing? Do people hate my products? Do I need to do this? I'll just switch it up. And it reveals a lot about how you handle a lot of other problems in your life, right? And I can speak from personal experience where it's like, you take these and you're like, if you have a tendency to go, if things aren't working out, you just scrap everything and you start all over again. That's going to show up when you're running your ads. And that's not the best strategy. The best strategy is not to act overly impulsive and emotionally. The best strategy is to kind of like change course slightly, slowly. Don't take anything personal and make your decisions off data. The problem is when you get too close to it, your emotions are tied. We're all susceptible to this. This is, like I said, we're not excluding ourselves. It's just now delegating it out will help because it allows you to stay in your strong space and, essentially not ruin the part that needs to be run a certain way by getting overly emotional about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things, and I liked your response to this in our previous one that no one's ever going to hear ever. But I asked you, do you feel like there's some sort of daily spend threshold, or some arbitrary number, different for everybody, where where they hit this certain spend and all of a sudden the anxiety goes through the roof,
Yep.
right? Because, and I said this the last one, I have worked with people where they think you're spending $100 a day in ads. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I've met other people, worked with other people where they're like, I won't even turn on a campaign if it's not at least $150 or
Yep.
$200 a day.
Yep.
And then, and then you have people that are comfortable spending thousands a day.
Yep.
Right. But do you feel like people have some sort of threshold that they don't know about, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they hit it,
Yep.
and shit hits the fan, and
Yep.
their anxiety goes through the roof, and they're freaking out?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about this. So every single client that I work with has their own threshold daily that they can operate under and be just fine, even though the number that they're deciding is not actually accurate. Okay. So for example, you'll have, because it's all based on expectation levels, and the thing that will kill you when coming up with a budget, the thing that will absolutely destroy you is doing the what I'm spending today times 30 times 12. And what that means is if I'm spending $100 a day, if I spend that in 30 days, that's $3,000 a month. What happens is you overly focus on that number. And what you're actually doing subconsciously that you don't realize is you're actually making the assumption that you're going to spend this money and get zero sales back. Mm-hmm. That's actually how you're deciding. You're not deciding, oh, if I spend $3,000 and I get like $2,900 in sales and I have 50% margin, then really I only spent like $1,500 out of pocket. It's a $1,500 loss. It's not a $3,000 loss. Right.
But also, you're not going to keep spending a loss day in and day out if the campaign is losing money
work,
every day.
You just turn it off.
You turn it off. You turn it off because it's not working. But you're right. We like mentally, consciously, we're making the decision based on zero sales. Which,
Yeah.
why?
That's not going to happen.
Why the hell do we do that? Like,
Yeah.
I know that's what my brain.
I've done it before.
I know that's what my brain does. And I know, and
That's why you laugh when I said what you do is you take the daily times 30 times 12, right? Because you understand exactly what that means.
I mean, in the last one, you asked me, because we hit about $3,000 a day in sales on not in sales, in spend on mine, and that's when like I got ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Well, of course, because that's you shared the story of like you're spending $3,000 a day, and what does that mean? You're not actually taking it day by day and making assessments, or even week by week. What you're doing is you're saying, well, 3,000 times 30 times 12, that's $1 million in ad spend. I don't have $1 million right now. Well, of course you don't, because what we're doing is we're running ads to grow that, and if it doesn't work, we turn it off.
Yeah.
There's always a way out, and that's the thing. But we play this game of like, I'm going to spend this much, and then assume I'm actually going to get zero sales back.
Yeah.
Which is totally false. Unless you're a store that has like just started, that's not going to happen. And if you've got long history of like you're always selling $10,000 a month, I can make the argument you should be testing more aggressively, trying more things harder with your ad spend to try to ramp that up, because your goal really should be to spend as much as you can. But the reason why you're not is because everyone has a bad experience or something that causes them to not be able or okay to spend it.
Right.
Right? And so I think in that last episode that we talked about, I shared an experience that I ran into, which I almost can guarantee you are also running into this without either acknowledging it or not realizing it's even there. I had an experience in the past where I couldn't spend more than $50 a day in ad spend. Like I couldn't get myself to press the button to do 51. I couldn't do it. It was literally like a mental block, because I had an experience where when we were spending ad dollars, we were making great returns, great profits. Everything was going great. But the people that I was surrounded by did not feel comfortable. They had their own spend number that made them feel very nervous and anxious and scared and kind of go into survival mentality. And so what happens was I would get on the phone after this and just get hammered about, well, why are we spending this much? Well, and then when sales go down because we spend less, well, why aren't we getting as many sales? Why did we stop spending that much? And it was a constant roller coaster. And it's because there was emotion tied to that. And what basically the reason why I'm sharing that is because it took me a long time to be able to kind of release the brakes to that, because I understood the reason why I can't get past this level is because I need to be spending more. But the reason why I can't spend more is because I've internalized this negative experience as truth, as I could never get around that. So therefore I had this little block or ceiling that I put on myself that shouldn't be there, should be removed. But I'm the one actually keeping myself there. So that's the experience of how most business owners that are running ads and are having some level of success, they could reach the number that they have in their mind or that they're idolizing someone else for reaching. They could reach it right now if they just remove that block of doing the daily spend times 30 times 12 in their head. They could get rid of that. They will be able to reach the goal. And I can almost tell you this. If I could convince a client, let's say that was just like, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. And I would say, I'm going to be the analytical person. I'm going to not allow you to see what's going on in the ad account.
Okay.
At all.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to run it based off of the numbers you said you need to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to block you from being able to see what's being spent, and I'm going to maintain that number and grow it. I bet you would grow way faster because you wouldn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You would just be like, oh, well, more sales are coming in, and the numbers are working out.
Yeah.
But because you can see it, you will freak yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
You'll spook yourself by just looking at it and go, oh man, what if this happens? And you start playing the what if game.
Right. I think there's a caveat to that. Because with you, definitely, but I think, and this is something we don't talk about a lot, I think a lot of business owners have tried hiring someone to help them with ads. I'm guessing you are oftentimes not the first person they've worked with.
I never am.
And many times you get someone that talks a big game. I mean, a lot of agencies do this. They say, yeah, we can definitely do this. They run ads for 6 months, blow all their money, and then they say, well, it didn't work out.
Yep, sorry.
Bye, right? And so I wonder if that's, and this, we actually did not talk about this in the last one, but I think that might be a reason why a lot of people are like, I need to see the numbers.
Yep.
Because they've been burned in the past.
Sure.
I know when I was doing agency web dev stuff, literally every person I talked with had been burned by a developer that had promised them they would get this thing done on time, and they didn't. And they were all super hesitant to hire me because I was way more expensive. But I was like, I'm expensive because I deliver.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. That's actually a good point, because every conversation that I've had, I won't say every, but 90 out of 100, they either ran ads themselves or they hired another person, an agency, or took a course, all kind of the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, we can get you, these unrealistic results. And that's the problem, is a lot of the issues that people run into is they're being sold on unrealistic objectives or goals, right? For example, you see the course, if you do these hacks, you'll get a 10 return on investment. This is a conversation that I actually have often, and I'm happy you brought this up because we didn't talk about this in the last episode. There's benefits to this. So there's an assumption, because of bad players out there, their programs say that you should be getting a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 return on ad spend on your dollar. And not only that, when you scale up, it should be the same, right? So the belief is, well, if I spend $10 a day, right, and I got a 5 return on ad spend, then if I spend $10,000 a day, I should be able to maintain that 5 return on ad spend, which is absolutely false.
Correct.
But a lot of these programs, they teach that. They kind of leave that part out. Like, oh, when you scale up, you should get that. So a lot of the conversations I actually will have with people that are new, that used to work with someone else, is they like to say this. Well, yeah, if I spend 100 and I'm making, and they'll throw a ridiculous number. If I spend 100 and I'm making like $5,000, then why would I not spend 1,000 and make like 50? And you're like, well, that's because that's not going to happen.
That's because that's not realistic.
And whoever told you that's lying.
Right.
100%. Instead, what you need to do is think more realistically. Because if you could do that, then why isn't the person that taught you how to do that, why are they not on the cover of Forbes as the richest person in the world? Right? Because then all they'd have to do is just go, well, I'll just spend $1 billion and then I'll be worth $500 billion. I'll be richer than everybody.
I'll be richer than all the people.
Right? But that's not how it works. Right? So what you have to think about is do it more realistic, thinking, if I put $1 in, how do I get like, a 50% return on my dollar? Not, 20,000% return, because that's not going to happen. That's just greedy, right?
And maybe you get lucky and you spend $1 and you make one sale and that's worth $100, so your return on investment was 100x or whatever. But when you scale that up, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way because you're reaching more people. It's just how it's mathematically how things scale in the ad world. But like we said in all of we'll say this again, I'm sure, but the companies out there you're seeing running ads all over the place, the big companies, right? They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on ads, and many times they don't have a direct way to monetize those ads. Think of like Pepsi and Coke, right? Like these are massive brands. All of their marketing campaigns, you still have to go into a grocery store and buy some Coke or some Pepsi, right? I'm not seeing a Coke or Pepsi ad on Facebook and clicking it and buying Coke to get delivered to my house.
Let me get a 12-pack delivered straight to my house right away.
Right away.
And what's the return on ad spend?
What's the return on ad spend? They don't calculate return on ad spend the same way you do, right? And so if you're comparing a company that's making $10 million a year, and your company's making $100,000 a year, and you want to get to those levels, and you want to maintain the exact same ROAS you have right now versus then, it's not going to happen. You've got to explore other channels, and some are going to be more profitable. You've got to scoop up a much larger market and probably launch some new product lines or some new product offers or something like that. You've got to explore these other complex things.
Well, and I think, speaking with, how to manage your psychology when you're doing this. Here's why you become stressed out is, number one, the fear of losing money, right? But you're not thinking rationally. That's only emotional. Like if you spend 100 and you only sell 80, you didn't really lose $100, right? But you think you did.
Yeah.
Or your mind will trick you into believing that. But that's not actually what happened. You may have lost $30.
Right.
$40, right?
Yeah.
Because you account for all the costs and all that. But your mind will make you panic and keep going into survival mode, right? The other thing is, if you go into running ads with unrealistic expectations, you're actually causing your own anxiety. Because if I went on a weight loss plan and said, if I don't lose 100 pounds in the next 14 days, something is seriously wrong. Then every day I'm going to be stressed out to the max because my expectation is unrealistic. I'm not going to lose 100 pounds in 40 days, so therefore I shouldn't be thinking about that.
Right.
I should be thinking about just lose 2 pounds a week.
Yeah.
And eventually I'll get there.
Right.
That's how you should be looking at your ad account is, if I can get a 20, 30, 40, 50% return on my dollar, and I can do that over an extended period of time, that's how I'm actually going to become wealthier than if I try to hit home runs and go, I need to spend $100 and get a 1 million return back. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And so that's what causes your own anxiety, is your unrealistic expectation of what should be happening. And I don't blame anyone because they just don't know. But my goal in this podcast is to explain to you how this actually works.
Right.
And the way it works is you got to look at your ads as a way to get decent returns on the front end. So on the back end, your email marketing and your new product launches and all that can make you all of the profit because you've acquired those customers. Right. If you look at it that way, you would be a lot more aggressive with your advertising versus thinking my advertising is supposed to, if I put $1 in, I'm going to get $10 back forever at unlimited spend scale. Right.
Yeah. So we talked about this in the last one, but essentially two things. I think that this episode should be named Zen in the Art of Advertising, because it really is this mental game, and people talk about a mental mind shift, whatever, a lot, but I feel like a lot of the gurus kind of miss that. Like, everybody has some sort of hang-ups when it comes to running a business, running ads, whatever, and this kind of exposes those things.
Absolutely.
And so the best media buyer is one that's also a good therapist.
Yep.
And so make sure you have those realistic expectations. Make sure you're not doing something to try to just get rich in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
The courses and the people telling you that's what they can help you do, it's a statistical anomaly, right? Like, that's not realistic. The people that have the good businesses, the successful businesses that are working long term, are those that grew steadily, slowly, made smart decisions, and kept doing what was working, and didn't just throw that out the window to manage their own anxieties to try to start something new. To bring us back to kind of our initial topic, I really do feel like a lot of people, if you're getting sick of selling the same coffee mug, even though it's making you so much money as a business owner, you delegate that out. Delegate that off. Have your media buyer or your other team members work on that, and you work together putting another offer, whether that's a new product, whether that's a companion product, or maybe that's some sort of bundle. We've talked about bundles. We love bundles.
Yes,
they're the best. But come up with some cool, unique, interesting angle to then say, okay, media buyer Greg, here's this new bundle. I've worked with, I've reached out to a lot of my customers. I feel like this is going to be the next kind of interesting combination to put things together, or interesting companion product or whatever. Let's test this while also keeping all that stuff running, because you've already got that stuff figured out.
Yep.
We'll leave that going. And that's how you scale up a business.
Correct.
With stability, maintaining stability without the fluctuations, and into the long-term, kind of success.
Well, and the thing, if I could emphasize anything, there is a benefit of delegating as well, is you can protect yourself from yourself, because the worst thing you can do, especially when running ads, but same in business and everything, you never make your best decisions at your highest emotional peaks.
No.
Right? You actually make terrible decisions the more emotionally stimulated you are.
Right.
Because you're no longer thinking rationally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you go into survival instincts. And so one of the things that, I'm thinking of a couple scenarios that I've run into where things are working really well, but because we've surpassed that threshold, that daily budget spend threshold, the stories and falseness that we tell each other, while this happens, to get out of it, just because we feel uncomfortable, we'll start manufacturing stories.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't profitable anymore, even though the numbers are showing that it is. It's just that you're trying to escape the discomfort of doing something you're not used to.
Right.
And you're going to the next level. So what we do is we come up with a story and we try to nitpick it to say it's not working, but not really because any data is showing that. It's only because I feel very uncomfortable and I want to get out of this.
Right.
Right? And I want to go back to where we were, where we can,
where I felt comfortable, but then I'm also not comfortable with with what our revenue numbers were, right?
Yep.
So there's this push and pull, and that's why the conversation needs to be had. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'll always say it. I'm a big fan of therapy. There's occupational therapists out there that actually help deal specifically with professionals in the work environment and how to manage some of these uncomfortable things. I think that's fantastic to pursue that and explore those options as well. But Greg, I think we should wrap this one up. And unless you had anything final you had to say.
No, really, what I would say, the final message: work on your emotional, your emotional intelligence, I guess, or focusing on how to manage your emotions, and be truthful to yourself when you're making decisions on if you want to grow. You're going to have to do things outside your comfort zone, and you will feel discomfort. So you have to do everything in your power to fight against the desire to go back to your comfort zone. Whatever it takes to not do that if you want to keep growing. And so with that final statement, if you want a free therapy session, go to gregmarshall.co and book a free call with me. But all jokes aside, if you need help growing your business and you're not happy exactly with where you're at and you'd like to grow it in a business-minded mindset, go ahead and book a call with me. And Blake, how do they get a hold of you?
Just go to blakebuse.com. I've got a membership on there where I basically help coach, train people with social media marketing, specifically like organic marketing. But I do answer questions on ads when those pop up. And or you can just reach out to me, contact me, and we can have a chat on whatever. I just like chatting with people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you guys all later.
All right, see ya.